Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, October is here in full swing.
Yes, it is.
Elections are around the corner.
Coming up fast.
Even though typically this time of the year is a very, very busy time of the year event-wise.
Yeah. We're
slowly coming back to some events and different things that we can talk about. It's been an unusual year, to say the least.
Yeah, there's really no describing this year.
October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
And in regards to that, we're going to be speaking for the majority of the show with the people from Friend to Friend, Executive Director Anne Friesen, Carolyn Reynolds, who is the Batterer Intervention Program Director, which they're going to be talking about, and Winona Caruthers, who is a counselor and housing case manager. If I mispronounced your name, I apologize. Is it pronounce it for me?
Caruthers, yeah.
I did?
Got it, yep.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
got it.
Before we segue to speak with Anne and Friend to Friend, a couple of weeks ago, we had the artistic director of the Encore Center with us, Greta Zanstra. And Greta and I were emailing early this morning, and she sent me a press release. And one of the great things about living in such a small community is we can connect very quickly. So within a matter of 2.5 hours, Greta was able to come in and join us because, Greta, you had the Hitchcock production a few weeks ago.
We did.
The Encore Center.
Mm-hmm, yes.
And you've got a press release with a new production coming out, and I wanted you to recap the Hitchcock performance and what's coming up.
Yes, thank you. In September, we had a couple weekends where we did The 39 Steps, which is a comedic play based on the Hitchcock film, which is originally based on a novel.
Right.
And we were looking for a way to present an arts experience or just a community experience that was still pretty safe. So we wanted to be outdoors, not indoors, of course. That wasn't even legal. But we also made sure our audience members were spaced out. We had people bring their own chairs, so we weren't touching anything. We had all of our playbills, or the programs you get, were all by QR code, so you didn't touch something someone else had touched. We were really trying to make it as COVID conscious as possible, but still be able to present something. And from the perspective of the artists involved, we were following the best guidelines as suggested by the various unions to make sure that people were as safe as possible, but we were still able to present something. And it was very well received. The audiences were big. We had sellouts every night, and they seemed to really enjoy it. So we thought, man, while it's still not too cold, let's see if we can't do one more thing this fall. So we are doing, and the title is a little tricky. It's the Brothers Grimm Spectaculathon.
Right.
So Brothers Grimm, we all know, they were collectors of stories, and they collected hundreds of stories. And this is sort of an amalgamation of a bunch of Brothers Grimm's tales, just told from a comedic sort of comedy sports technique or style. So it's quick moving, it's a lot of fun. It's appropriate for about ages 8 and up, I'd say. If you have a really tiny one, I don't think they would enjoy it as much, but for your elementary age and all the way up through adults. I had some adult sort of guest audience members come to rehearsal the other day just to see how it was playing with that age group, and they were laughing and laughing. It's silly, it's fun. It will also be outdoors, also maintaining our socially distanced little audience bubbles. And we once again have picnic baskets, which were also really fun. You can choose a regular ticket or a picnic basket included ticket. And we put together all kinds of tasty little snacks, and bring your picnic basket and your lawn chairs and come enjoy a show.
Tell me where the production is going to be staged.
So we have 2 locations. Last time we did 2 locations as well. So the first weekend we will be in downtown Southern Pines behind the Encore Center, which is at 160 East New Hampshire Avenue, directly across the street from Chapman's Restaurant, sort of in the back backyard of Beltree Tavern. So right in the midst of all the fun downtown. And then the next weekend, we're going to be on the other side of Moore County at the Foxfire Village Green. So this kind of, I think, makes it a little more accessible to people in different communities. And we're excited that Foxfire is hosting us. So,
from what I understand, when you did the Hitchcock production, you had a near sellout at least 2 of the 3 nights.
Yes, we did indeed.
Tells you that people are clamoring to get out and have something to do that's safe, social distanced, but people are getting, a little claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And the distancing was good. People were comfortable with the logistics.
I had a lot of people say that they felt really comfortable, that we spread people out really nicely. They felt like they could see well. They felt that they had a lot of space for them and their family. So I think it was well received in that range. And a lot of people commented on the details, that we had a box of masks for somebody who might have forgotten their mask or lost track of their mask. We had hand sanitizer spaced around the space in case people felt like they needed to freshen up after touching things. So, we were trying really hard to be as safe as possible.
And tickets are only $10.
Yes.
So I have no clue how you make any money. How does that work? Productions cost quite a bit of money.
They do indeed. And one of our goals at the Encore Center is to make sure that arts education and arts programming is accessible. So we don't want it to be cost prohibitive to the majority of our community. That's not what we're about. So we're trying to keep it really low cost. But the flip side of that is that I always joke, but it's a true story, that I literally take things out of garbage cans and make them into costumes and props. So, that's how we try to keep it as tight as we can to, reuse and reduce and recycle and all that, to make sure that the community is able to join us.
You were one of the actors in the Hitchcock production. Will you be
was.
participating in this one?
No, sir. I am the director of this one. It was really fun to be on stage last time. Last season, I directed everything, but as our staff continues to grow, it afforded the opportunity for me to flip to the other side for a show.
So next weekend is the first production in downtown Southern Pines, and then Foxfire Village at 10 South Shamrock Drive the following weekend.
Yes.
And people can go online.
Absolutely.
Your website?
Yep. EncoreCenter.net is the website for our entire organization. So it offers information about all our dance classes and arts courses and music lessons, but also right at the top of the page is a big blue button that says buy tickets. So you click on that and it'll bring you to all the productions.
So in summary, the Encore Center is not just an outdoor theater production company. Can you tell us just a little bit about the work that you do at the Encore Center?
Absolutely. Our tagline and our goal is to be an artistic home for Moore County. So we have dance classes for all ages. We have kinder music for a licensed music provider for the babies of the world. We have arts classes, visual arts. We have weekend sort of workshops for adults who are interested in things. We have music lessons for all ages. We really are trying to make sure that if there's something in the artistic vein that you want to learn more about or be participating in, that we're offering that opportunity.
It's a shame you're not enthusiastic about what you do. It's a shame you don't have the intonation in your voice. You could go on any radio and make it light up.
Thank you.
Yeah, Greta, good luck with the show. And I hope
much.
people are out. People are still looking for things to do.
I think
as long
so.
as they know they're protected.
Yeah.
And just to get outside of their 4 walls.
Indeed. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah. Stay with us if you'd like. We, as I mentioned earlier, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we've been privileged to have Anne Friesen from Friend to Friend on over the years. There's always something going on, but as Greta was speaking about in this pandemic and in COVID, she's had to pivot many ways to accommodate. How has the agency, Friend to Friend, gotten by in 2020?
Well, as all nonprofits, we've been challenged with, how do we continue all of our emergency shelter services and also, be safe. And we are really proud of our team because we have continued all of our services. We've never paused any of them through phase 1, 2, and 3. We've remained open, and our 24/7 crisis line has remained open. Our shelter has remained open and served clients throughout COVID. Also, all of our advocacy office for protective order has just been done virtually. So what that means is folks go across the street in downtown Carthage and get the protective order paperwork,
Yeah.
and then they'll walk across the street, and we will give them a phone number, and they call, and we do the protective order paperwork over the phone. And then we have wonderful counselors that do the virtual counseling sessions. So we've been able to do all of our services free without disruption, and we're super proud of that.
I have a question. I have a couple of questions, but how effective are the virtual counseling sessions versus the in-person eyeball to eyeball?
Well, Caroline is here, and she does some of the virtuals, and she's actually gotten some feedback. I'll let her jump in. This is Caroline.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, so we have started some teletherapy over the past few months.
Teletherapy, okay.
That's the term we've been using. And actually, I'd say that, interestingly, some people have found it much more accessible. It's very interesting how much more relaxed people are in their own homes, in their environments.
Okay.
So we've gotten some very positive feedback. Some people have loved it. Some people are eager to get back to the face-to-face. But for a lot of people, it's been a very comfortable switch.
Yeah, I had attended a Zoom memorial service a few weeks ago. There were 34 people on the screen. People I grew up with as kids, cousins, but we couldn't talk. It was one person and one person. You couldn't start having. It was a little unusual, but everyone is accommodating. The other thing, Anne, I have to ask you is we've had some agencies on this year. How has COVID affected fundraising?
Well, we have sent letters and done online newsletters on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and tried to communicate a lot on social media. So we haven't been able to do any fundraisers per se, except we did, in April, we had a 5K rock and run that we did virtually, and we were pleased that we had so many participants. And because we didn't have a lot of the expenses, we almost made the same amount as we did the year before because we didn't pay for the timing machines and some of those overheads. So, we've been trying to be really creative.
Yeah.
And we've had to cancel one of our events just a couple of days ago due to the COVID. But other than that, we've tried to be creative and just come up with new ways to connect with both our clients, prospective clients, and our supporters in the community. And we have been so pleased with folks' generosity.
With people being at home more and more often, has there been a direct correlation between an increase in violence because people are not as mobile, that they're together? We've heard so many different things about marriages getting tested. Everybody is just on top of each other. Has that been an issue?
Well, it was interesting. We all anticipated, because people were in close proximity in phase one, that we would get, an onslaught. And it was quite quiet at the shelter. I think folks were at home and they weren't thinking they might want to go to a shelter environment because of the safety aspects. And we were kind of surprised with that. But it was interesting. The Friday that phase two was announced, we were full by the end of the day. So I think that was the time when people, felt more comfortable. We did see, like in August, we had more protective orders that we completed than the August before. But it wasn't, a huge, right at phase one, things got a little quiet, and I think people were just hunkered down in their home.
March and April?
Yes, trying to sort of decide what to do next. But I think everybody's looked at their relationships through a new lens with COVID, just because people have been together more.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a specific new program that you have, but before we do, can you just talk big picture about the mission of Friend to Friend and the type of services that you do offer for people who maybe have not been familiar with the agency?
Sure. Friend to Friend has been around for 30 years. We're a Moore County nonprofit, and our mission is to help survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking rebuild their lives. And we do that by offering supportive services such as a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis line. So someone can call in the middle of the night, and if they're in crisis and need shelter or just support, they can talk to a trained staff member 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a 34-bed shelter that can house men, women, and children. folks will come. Some people will just stay 1 or 2 nights, up to 3 months, and then our trafficking victims have stayed up to 18 months. So we just take people individually and try to help them once they've had a few days of rest to really look at what their goals are for self-sufficiency and try to support them. And that's, in a minute, we'll be talking to Winona, who's our housing specialist. That was sort of a challenge for a lot of clients because we just don't have that much low-income housing here. And so Winona has been working really hard with the clients to connect them with housing.
In the 20 years I've been here, Friend to Friend has had a presence here for many, many years. Is it safe to say that in the last 10 to 15 years that the presence of Friend to Friend has really expanded even further than they did back in 04, 03?
Yes. Unfortunately, a lot of the surrounding county shelters have closed down due to lack of funding or various other reasons. So we've become a regional response for sure. And we do help folks. They can call us from anywhere in the country. And we've actually had people flown from Germany. They have military spouses and they've wanted to reconnect with family here. So they can call the crisis line and connect with services or our advocacy office. But typically, most of our clients are regional or North Carolina residents.
Winona, I want to get you involved before we get to the second set. This topic, in a lot of people's mindset, maybe flies under the radar in spite of all the efforts of the press and the things that you put out. You are in the trenches, working in the housing aspect of putting people together with lodging temporarily, so you get to see the underbelly of it all, the reality of it all.
Yeah. So, as somebody who works in the shelter daily with clients, I get to kind of see, the barriers that a lot of individuals face when they are trying to leave our shelter and become, a part of the community again. And so part of our goal at the shelter is to really connect folks with safe and affordable housing in Moore County and also in surrounding counties as well. And so, that is something that we are always looking to partner with the community on. And we, are really hoping that we can, over time, develop some relationships with folks in our community who want to help but don't know how. And, one way in our county really would be to partner with us as a private landlord and to be able to then provide affordable and safe housing to folks who otherwise may not be able to find something when they leave our shelter.
So you work with landlords of rental properties in Moore County that are not necessarily set up, but you're looking for volunteers?
Yeah, so we're really looking, part of my role at Friend to Friend is really to expand the options that we have for our clients. So currently, we work with public landlords such as apartment complexes, income-based apartment complexes. But there are, some of our clients who, because of the indirect effects of the domestic violence, sexual assault, or human trafficking, are ineligible for the low income or income-based housing options. And so that's when we're really looking for private landlords in the community to step up and to collaborate with us.
So they would all be anonymous locations? In other words, there have to be safety features put in place?
No, they don't have to be anonymous locations. Once they leave our shelter, at that point, it's more, when I say safe housing, we're really referring to just a place where they're not going to continue to be victimized, where they're not in a position where they're having to return to their abuser. And then affordable being something that, is going to work within their budget.
Okay. Before we go to break, real quick, I'd love to know, how did you get to Moore County?
How did I get here?
Yes.
Yeah. So I moved here in 2017. So I've been here 3 years now.
Okay.
I moved here from Washington State.
Okay.
Worked in Seattle. And my husband is in the military. And so we are, like many of our other Moore County folks, we are stationed in the region.
And how did you and Anne hook up?
Yeah, so I actually became involved with Friend to Friend because as a volunteer, I coordinated our county's first point-in-time count this year. And the point-in-time count is actually a count of individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness in our county. And it is a federally mandated count. And it was the first time our county did it. And as a volunteer, I led it. And I connected with Friend to Friend because they are involved in that count.
Yeah. Carolyn, I want to ask you the same question. Are you a native of Moore County?
No, I am not. I'm also a military spouse. We've been here. We came in last April.
Oh, wow.
This is our second time actually stationed at Fort Bragg. So
Where did you come from?
I'm from Texas originally, but we were actually in Colorado Springs last.
And how did you and Ann hook up?
I was here job hunting shortly after we moved,
Okay.
and had put in a volunteer application with Friend to Friend. I was familiar with the services. Domestic violence is my professional background. So I put in an application as soon as a job became available, and I was hired on actually in the sexual assault programs, and now am shifting into a different role with the agency.
Great. Well, welcome both of you
Thank
to
you.
Moore County. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we're going to come back in the second and third sets, and we're going to talk more in depth about a couple of new programs. The topic is this conversation with Friend to Friend all day. This is All Things Moore County. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County. We're speaking with Friend to Friend Director, Executive Director Anne Friesen, Carolyn Reynolds, and Winona Caruthers. We're talking. You guys want to talk today about a new program, the Batterer Intervention Program. Carolyn? This is October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so this is a good time, I guess, to kick it off.
Absolutely. No, we're very excited. This has actually been about a year in the making. We have a local DVSA task force that's comprised of law enforcement, advocates, the district attorney's office, DSS, various other agencies. And this was an idea proposed at the beginning of last year's task force as something that was identified as a gap in the community and a need that needed to be met. And very conveniently also happens to be part of my background, so I was very excited to get this up and running. So we've been working on it since about this time last year. I've been working on crafting the program, policies. We had to apply for a state certification, which we received in April. And then our grant funding, which was released this month as well. So now we're really officially kicking off.
Tell me real quickly about your background.
Absolutely. So I am an MSW. I'm a social worker, and I have a background primarily in domestic violence and child abuse. So I've done mostly domestic violence work in batterer intervention and some counseling, and then also child welfare work and casework.
Can you break down the gender, the male versus female? Because people, I think, have misconceptions about what those numbers look like.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, it would be faulty to deny that there are ever women involved in domestic violence incidents. It certainly occurs, but we do see, and statistics back it up, that the majority of domestic violence offenders are male. And there's also some complications as well, because many relationships become sort of co-combative as one partner learns to defend themselves and starts that process. So sometimes there can be some confusion there. But the majority of the time we do unfortunately see males as the primary aggressor in the relationship. So we see far more of those referrals than females. Although, again, we certainly are open to that as well and realize that's a reality.
So specifically, the Batterer Intervention Program, is it a coaching? Is it a counseling program? What are the specifics? Yeah.
Yeah, so Batterer Intervention is actually kind of a unique model. It is a group program, and it's really cognitive behavioral. So it is 26 weeks of groups. The groups are weekly. They're about an hour and a half. And each group is very discussion-based. So it's not just psychoeducation where we're teaching people how to manage anger or how to communicate better. There are elements of that. But we're also getting to the root of, what do you have to believe? What messages have you internalized about your role in this relationship, her role in this relationship, what healthy relationships look like or don't look like, that prompts you to behave these ways when you're under stress, that prompts you to respond to difficulties or conflicts with violence versus nonviolence. that drives those abusive behaviors.
So you're talking about the people that are the batterers.
Yes.
So you're talking about a group of people that are more predominantly male, and so you're trying to change their behavior.
So, and again, we can't
By
change
making
behavior.
by making them understand. Is that okay?
Right. So it is, the idea is all of our participants, well, I shouldn't say all, but the majority are mandated by the court because they've been found responsible for some sort of domestic violence related incident. Some are also can be referred by DSS if there's domestic violence or child abuse in the home. And it's a process of asking them to reflect upon their beliefs, their understandings, the messages they've internalized that drive them to behave the way that they do. Now, what they choose to do with that information is up to them, but it's a very self-reflective process.
How contrite and how willing are they to accommodate?
So very rarely does someone walk in just thrilled to be in my group.
Right.
But actually, I think what we find is that most of these individuals really do care about and love their partners. Now, some of them might not at that present moment because they feel they're responsible for, whatever consequences they've entailed. But the majority really do, and they want to have healthier relationships. They want to have healthier lives overall. The consequences aren't fun for them. That's not what they want out of their lives. However, they don't understand how to change it. So we do often see that over time, while they may come in very defensive, while they may come in very aggressive and feeling like it's not their responsibility, they tend to open up as group goes on.
What's the common denominator? Is there a common denominator amongst batterers that you can draw upon from experience? Is it the way the families they were raised in? Do you look for things where there are similarities?
I mean, there's certainly...
Not that easy, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, they're all very unique individuals, very unique backgrounds. I think it would be remiss not to recognize that trauma is a huge factor in many of these individuals' lives. Many of them were raised in violent homes themselves or experienced some parental conflict that may have shaped their belief systems. However, of course, that's not to blame for their violence. Plenty of people have trauma backgrounds that never abuse their partners. So we try to balance that understanding of being trauma-informed and respectful of those needs with also that drive for accountability and the need for that individual to recognize the impact of their actions.
This program is just starting here now.
Yes, sir.
Have you been involved in this program in your background where you can talk about how effective it is?
Yeah, certainly. So I did this program actually in Texas, in El Paso, Texas, when we were stationed there. One of the tricky things about measuring outcomes in a program like this is it's very difficult because there's not a firm metric. We can measure how many people who complete the program return or how many return to the justice system. Those numbers actually tend to be very low. Many times, many programs see fewer than 10% of their completed participants come back through the program again. Now, does that mean that they never commit any act of violence again? No, not necessarily. But generally what we do see is that participants who leave walk away with far more tools and a far better understanding of themselves and their actions than they came in with. Mm-hmm. And if we look at it on a continuum, generally, even if they don't become fully nonviolent, we see a reduction in the severity or frequency of that violence.
Just acknowledging that they have an issue is the big first step, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Friend to Friend, Anne, used to focus on the people who were battered. Now you're stepping out and going to the other side of the equation as well to work with both sides.
Right, because our vision is to have, to eradicate domestic violence and physical and intimate partner violence. And so this idea of we want to have that support system, safe shelter, advocacy support, counseling services, wraparound services for the survivor or victim, but you really need to look at the full picture. And if you can help the offender learn to, tools and strategies to not reoffend and have healthier relationships, it benefits the whole family and it just benefits society. So this is really exciting. We've looked at this over the years, but we really haven't had a staff person that would do it well. And so when Caroline came and also the task force really wanted to revisit it, this was a really great time. And I will say this is an evidence based program. So it has been, tried and true over time. It's not a quick fix. Obviously, it has to be compliant. The offender needs to want to change, but it absolutely sets them up for success to do so if they come to the program and work the program and complete the program.
Are the participants in the program that's mandated that they be there, are they incarcerated or are they free to travel and come and go as they please?
The majority of our participants are on either probation or parole, so they're no longer incarcerated or they never have been.
Have you started the program yet?
No, we have not. So we just opened up this month to begin accepting referrals. We're connecting with our referral sources and making sure everybody's clear on the setup of the program, what the requirements are, and we've begun hiring our staff and training them to be ready to start groups once we get those in.
What happened in Texas? What kind of attendance did you get? Did people show? Did they drop out? Did they stay with the program?
I mean, many people don't complete the program because it's difficult. It's very challenging. There is a lot of discomfort involved. You have to get uncomfortable to face some of these things. So there are a number of people who choose not to be compliant, even though there are consequences for failing to do so. However, we consistently had very large groups in Texas. Our group sizes would range from 20 to 30 participants on average. We ran groups every night of the week and some on weekends at that particular agency. And there were a decent number who did complete the program, and those who did really made some significant changes. It was very impressive.
Good job. Really good job. We're going to come back in the third set. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we'll continue our conversation with Friend to Friend. We're back talking with Friend to Friend. We're talking about domestic violence. October has been earmarked as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. COVID has done a lot of things to our lives this year. We talked a little bit with Anne at the beginning about fundraising, how you have to pivot to accommodate and provide services. But with the pandemic, and this is a general question for the table, have you seen an increase in demand this year? Because every year you're doing more and more and more, but every year the problem seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I can't imagine where the problem would be if Friend to Friend wasn't here. What about the demand this year? Are you guys up against it?
I think, I think it's been interesting. We have a couple community educators. Casey does an amazing job. You'll see her at, the dog fair, different events, concerts, and she'll have a table. And we do that just to let people know all our services are free. We're here if you have a loved one or a sister or a coworker that's struggling with, being a victim of this abuse, where to go and how to connect. So one of the reasons I think we're seeing an increase in requests is because Casey is doing such a great job, and so is Jan. She does our human trafficking presentations and training. So over the past year, just to give you kind of a point of reference, we saw a 38% increase in just the clients we served over the last year and a 42% increase in the demands for our human trafficking services. So that's a pretty big jump. And that has really made us think about, how can we help the folks that are connecting with us? One thing is we are looking at adding capacity, more beds to our shelter program, because we are seeing a need, because it's becoming a regional response that people need safe shelter at the beginning just to make sure they can sort of, reboot, rethink, and come up with a new plan. And then that's where we see this gap in housing. You know, they come to us, they're ready to make a change, and how can they set themselves up so they don't need to go to the abuser for financial support. So Winona is, working really behind the scenes on trying to make some connections in the community to help connect survivors with safe housing when they leave our shelter program.
So Winona, when Anne talks about extra beds, those extra beds are not at the shelter, they're outside the shelter?
Well, both. I'll just say we're looking at actually building a little cottage on the site so that we can have more beds. But Winona, for people that are leaving the shelter, they need a place to go.
Yeah.
Housing, rental homes in Moore County are at an all-time high. There are so many, the rental market is just very brisk.
Yes.
People have in-law suites, different types of guest quarters.
Yeah.
Are you starting the process of reaching out to, how are you doing that?
Yeah, so that is what we're really looking for, is folks who have maybe an in-law suite that's available,
Yep.
a guest cottage. That would be
Yep.
really kind of a prime option for
Yep.
our clients
Yep.
who are maybe not at the point where they're settling into their forever permanent home, but they need somewhere to build rental history and to get back on their feet after being in the shelter and to reintegrate into the community. And so we are making a concerted effort to make connections with landlords now. And that really looks like reaching out to spiritual leaders in the community to see if there are folks in their congregations who have properties. I would, love to connect more with the real estate community in this area, see if we can really start to build up kind of this reservoir of landlords that we can go to when we have a client who's ready to leave, has some income, but also has a couple of barriers that prevent them from being able to rent an apartment.
So these are opportunities for them to rent, maybe not unlike a Section 8, a different definition, but maybe at a very reduced rate of rent to get them back on their feet as a middle ground before they move on?
Yeah, so not Section 8, but what we're talking about is clients who have some income.
That's right.
They could rent something.
That's right.
But maybe, they're not able to rent a full house in Moore County, right?
Gotcha.
And so they could rent something. They have some income for that. And they really just need the opportunity and a landlord who is willing to provide that opportunity.
And so you're probably talking about furnished rentals?
No? Not necessarily.
Oh.
I mean, sometimes that would be a good fit for our clients. It just kind of depends on the case. Certainly wouldn't, if somebody was offering a furnished rental, we certainly wouldn't turn that down. Yeah, I mean, that would be great. But yeah, it doesn't, not having the furniture doesn't mean that they couldn't rent.
Yeah, Anne?
And one thing I just want to mention, part of oftentimes abuse that happens is financial abuse, so that the abuser has control. It's about power and control, and they have control over the finance. The victim doesn't have oftentimes a credit history, or it is not a good credit history, so she's now ready to be employed, be on her own. She's found a job, but she doesn't have a good credit history, so that's a barrier for her to go to an apartment. So this helps her to connect with a landlord that would be working with her. She would make her rent on time, but she could build a good credit history for future, maybe bigger moves.
Okay.
Exactly.
We should talk. I would be
I would love
delighted to
that.
talk to you, and I know a lot of people in the business that might be good conduits for you to have the more conversations you have with people, the more openings occur.
Absolutely.
It doesn't always happen at the very beginning, but the more you spread your wings, things will eventually shift, and you'll have opportunities that maybe you don't have right now.
Yeah, I love that idea. Thank you.
So you are, you're the person responsible for finding the housing right now for the people that are coming into the friend-to-friend.
Yes. Yep, that's my role. So I'm both a therapist and then a housing case manager. So I provide mental health therapy at the shelter and to clients outside of the shelter. But then I also am focused on really helping our shelter clients find housing.
So are you one of the first points of contact?
So what happens is the first point of contact is usually that crisis call.
Okay.
And then they enter our shelter, and then I am kind of the person who does a housing intake with them.
Okay.
And then at that point, we're kind of able to develop a plan together about what it looks like when they leave our shelter.
What does it look like for somebody who maybe has not reached out on the crisis hotline but should have, and maybe 4 months go by and then they did, but after things got worse? Is that typical?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we know that oftentimes before folks call us, they have left and returned to their abuser 6 to 9 times. And, that can be one of the times might be they go to a girlfriend's house and sleep on the sofa.
Right.
And for lots of reasons, they will go back and hope that it gets better, or he or she promises that it will and it doesn't. So when they come to the shelter, oftentimes they're really ready to, really not go back and to make it a kind of a permanent situation. But it really depends on how successful they are to find employment or income and housing. Because if you can't find housing and you can't find income, then you're going to be less options.
Is it a misconception to think that there is this is just a blue collar, but it's also a white collar?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think people think it's not white collar.
Yeah, we serve women and men from all over, gated communities, farm, land, and every aspect of every corner. So it really is. There's no profile. It can be anyone. Everybody goes into relationships, most everyone hopeful and feeling positive, and then, all of a sudden it becomes, or over time, unhealthy. And so, and it oftentimes is a slow process, so it's not as obvious as it looks from the outside. And it's very difficult when you have children and other issues like financial dependency to make that clean break. And we understand that. We don't judge folks. We try to take them where they are and try to see what they need and how we can best support them and help set them up for success.
And the abuse and the battering that you talk about is not just physical, is it? There are many aspects to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I think, some of the greatest trauma I've seen comes from people who have experienced psychological abuse, things that they may never have anyone raise a hand against them. And yet that can be incredibly devastating.
Mm-hmm. I remember as a kid watching a TV show called Divorce Court. And I would go to my dining room table with my mom and my dad, and I would say, "What are irreconcilable differences?" I didn't even know what divorce was as a kid in grade school, and mental anguish. And I didn't understand. As a kid, you just don't grasp those things. So a lot of it is psychological as well. It's financial, certainly. It's physical, it's psychological. And do people come in and they think that they're the only one, and do they get relieved right away to find out that, oh my gosh, no? And is there relief in that knowledge?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think for many, just to know that there is such a diversity at the shelter, or a lot of folks go to our advocacy office, they don't need shelter. They might have a sister they can move into, but they need services. So they don't have to be at the shelter to access counseling services or protective orders or connection of services for their children. We're really pleased and happy that we now have a CAC, a Children's Advocacy Center. And so that's a really great tool and referral that we can make for those that have, once mom starts talking about the abuse, sometimes the abuse has also happened to the children. And so helping them connect with those services is super important.
Yeah. We're winding down, unfortunately, but you guys it's a great conversation. If people want to reach out to Friend, you have a crisis hotline and you have a website they can go to. Can you give me that information?
So it's Friend to Friend, so friend.me is our website. And if you want to be a volunteer, you can. There's a very short application to apply to be a volunteer. If you want more information, if you have a loved one or a friend and you're not sure, there's all sorts of information of red flags and how to identify it. And then also our events. If you want to come and support Friend to Friend, you can donate online or mail a check, or you can come to one of our events. So that's a great resource. And then our crisis line is area code 910-947-3333. That's 947-3333. And that's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week line. Fundraising. We started talking a little bit about that. They didn't teach us that in college.
it's still something that you have to do, and you rely on private donations.
Yes, and I will say we're so grateful to the United Way. Right now, United Way is raising funds on behalf of the agencies they support, and we are a proud recipient of United Way. And so
Right.
please support them during all year round, but specifically these 2 months of September and October. And so we are just so grateful because they are such a big supporter of really important direct service agencies in our county.
Thank you. Winona, Carolyn, you guys are great spokespeople. Really great
Thank
spokespeople.
you.
Really, you got your heart is right behind every word that comes out of you. I'm very impressed. Thank you for coming and joining us. Anne, you've got 2 stars here.
We do.
Right?
We have got a wonderful team.
She's so proud, like a proud mom.
I am proud. They are wonderful. They are a great team, and they all have so many gifts and talents that they share
Really?
regularly with their clients, and we're very lucky to have them here in the community.
Yeah, their heart shows. Thank you for listening. Friend to Friend is the agency. It's one of the most important agencies in Moore County. Please go to their website. They're here to help, and I guess you're not alone is what the message is all the time.
Yes, get help and you can change your life.
This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week. Thank you.